our hearts are heavy with grief as we mourn the tragic loss of yet another young Tobago woman. Office of the Minority Leader. We want to thank you for tuning in, and we also want to apologize for the delay in our start. This press conference today, we saw it very necessary because of what we see as an increase in crime and violence in Tobago. So today, our hearts are heavy with grief as we mourn the tragic loss of yet another young Tobago woman. And this time it's Nikisha Sandy of Plymouth. And over the weekend, we saw where Miss Shelton Walters Joseph of Montmary also losing her life to gun violence. Our thoughts, our prayers, our deepest condolences go out to the families of the bereaved and loved ones during this unimaginable difficult time. So crime is at a record high in Tobago. We now have a situation where the number of murders recorded exceed the number of months. We are in the month of May, which is the 5th month of the year. And this morning, we recorded murder number 8 in Tobago. What is concerning, there seems to be a trend developing where women are the subject of these heinous acts of violence. And we are calling for an urgent action, and we are calling for us to stand together in solidarity as we condemn and take action against these acts of crime and violence in Tobago. So as women, as a woman, as a mother, as daughters, as sisters, as wives, aunts and nieces, let us refuse to accept a reality where our sisters fall victim to the scourge of violence. Let us stand together in solidarity, united in our empathy for those who have lost their lives and our determination to create a safer society for all. The recent scourge in violent incidents is not just statistics. It's a stark reality that threatens the safety and well-being of every individual in our community. We cannot turn a blind eye to the escalating violence that has gripped our streets. Families are living in fear. Businesses are suffering, and the fabric of our society is being torn apart. As residents, we cannot stand idly by while our beloved Tobago faces such turmoil. It is time for our men to stand up and speak out against the violence that plagues our communities. We call upon our fathers, brothers, sons, and friends to join us in condemning these senseless acts and advocating for change. A lot of us are grieving, and I am encouraging us to channel our grief and anger into action. We must support initiatives aimed at preventing violence, providing support to survivors, and addressing the root causes of crime. It is not only up to the government or the Tobago House of Assembly. It is up to each and every one of us to play our part in creating a safer Tobago. We must reject the culture of silence and fear that allows violence to thrive and instead stand up for justice and peace. I urge you all to join us, join the minority in calling for immediate action to stop violence and crime gripping our island. Together, we can build a safer, brighter future for all Tobagonians. Together, we can build a future where every woman and every citizen in Tobago can live without fear of violence or harm. Let us stand together and raise our voices and work tirelessly to create a Tobago where every woman and every individual feels safe and can thrive. And I'm sure many of us saw the video this morning of the hurt and the pain and the agony of the mother and the loved ones of Nikisha Sandy. And again, we are calling for action. We are calling for us to come together to take collective action to reduce the increase in gun violence and crime in Tobago. And at this time, I want to call on the minority leader who will lend his voice to this call for action. So Minority Leader, I call on you at this time to address the press conference this afternoon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Councillor Petal Daniel Benoit. Thank you for those inspiring words at this very difficult time. Let me say good afternoon to each and every one, Tobagonians one and all. Thank you, members of the media, for your presence here so that we can together transmit this message of great concern at this time. Today, fellow Tobagonians, we witness once again a very dark day in Tobago, where a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend, and a Tobagonian, her life was senselessly taken away. And as I reflected, and the Minority Councillor Benoit played that, touched on the video where you heard the agony, you heard the pain, you heard the sheer grief of a mother losing her daughter. And that video I played on my phone while in my car, and because the car was streaming, taking my son to school, he heard the mother crying out. And when I explained to him it's because she just lost her daughter, he asked me the question. He said, "Daddy, what is up with all these murders? Why are they killing each other?" And he even said, so they don't know they could go and play video games? If they, innocent child, but recognizing how painful such a situation is on a family, a community, and on Tobago. And so I join with the rest of Tobago. I join with the minority, the People's National Movement, and all of Tobago in extending our condolences and expressing our heartfelt condolences to the families of both Nikisha Sandy and Shellon Walters. And it took me a while to come to grips, to speak to the media and speak to Tobago, because that murder of Shellon Walters is one that I am still deeply hurt by. For many of you may not know, Shellon was at one point an employee in the office of the A representative at the time, Blackrock Wim Spring Garden. And we worked with Shellon because Shellon was a honest woman, a hard-working woman, a wife, a mother, and I know how much, I know the kind of sacrifices that Shellon put out to be able to provide an honest dollar and make an honest dollar for our family. And so we worked with her at every turn, every opportunity, starting within the office, and then we were able to get her into URP, and I know what she then moved on to work in security, and then she also worked outside of that to try to make ends meet. And therefore, when you consider, you know, that kind of life where you're trying to go about life sacrificing and earning your honest dollar, and in the course of it, your life is taken away, it is one that brings hurt, it brings pain, and we, as a Tobago family, we ought to stand together in this time of great grief. Our condolences goes out to the community, because as much as the family would be hurting, we are talking about an entire community. I recall about a year ago in Wim, when we also lost a young man from the village, a friend, a cousin, a relative, and I know the toll it took on the village, the entire community of Wim. We are still reeling from that. So I know the people in Plymouth, I know the pain you feel at this time. And therefore, our heart goes out to you. We stand with you. And today, I am calling for justice. Justice for Shellon Walters. Justice for Nikisha Sandy. Because it cannot be that we as an island can continue to have our brothers and sisters, their life taken away, and those who would have afflicted such a heinous crime continues to walk amongst us. And in calling for justice, I'm calling on each of us as Tobagonians, as Councillor Benoit rightly said. It cannot simply be that we blame the central government. It cannot simply be that we blame the Minister of Security. It cannot simply be that we blame the Tobago House of Assembly. It cannot simply be that we blame the police. Crime starts with each and every one of us. And in a small society like Tobago, where everyone knows each other, it is unacceptable that persons are committing crimes, heinous crimes, and returning to place of safe haven. I'm saying nowhere in Tobago should be safe to anyone who is determined to make a way of life out of crime. And I'm calling for families. I know it's difficult, because if you call, or if you talk and you report what you see, perhaps you may be hurting an aunt, because if the cousin gets locked up, your aunt will be hurting, or your brother may be hurting, or your cousin may be hurting. But ultimately, think about those innocent lives that are also going to be endangered if you do not speak up. So I'm calling on families, let us come together. Let us fight this fight together. This has to be a Tobago fight. This has to be a everybody fight. This cannot be a one-man fight. Communities have to now push back. We have to come together. And as a minority, I am saying here today, categorically, we are willing to work with anyone, including the executive, to ensure that we can come up with tangible crime-fighting measures to protect and preserve the lives of Tobagonians. I want to, at this point in time, also express my support for the efforts of law enforcement. You know, sometimes it may seem as though we want the police to be everywhere, and perhaps we love that, but we know the police, they are only humans too, and they cannot be everywhere all the time. And therefore, we must commend and support their efforts. Of course, we would want and we hope that as we go forward, there can be an increase in community patrols across the length and breadth of Tobago, especially those areas we know that we label hotspots and are prone to crime and violence. But we want to really commend the law enforcement. We want to commend ACP Hazel and his team for the work that they are doing, and we stand in solidarity with the police in ensuring that we can provide tangible mechanisms, tangible initiatives to ensure that we bring Tobago back to a place of safety. It is important that we bring Tobago back to a place of safety because in Tobago we depend on tourism, and therefore any act of violence in Tobago compromises our tourism efforts. We need Tobago to remain safe, and therefore it requires, as I said, a collaborative effort, a community effort. It starts with the individual, it then goes to the family, and then we start in the community, and then as Tobagonians, we can in fact restore this island. And as I touch on community, I'm saying that we need to empower individuals and communities to stand up against crime and violence by fostering a culture of vigilance, cooperation, and resilience. As I said before, we need to get to a culture of trusting the police and trusting them to the point that we can report suspicious activities. There was a time in Tobago where you knew everyone in the community. You knew them by name, you knew them by face, and therefore if anything happened in the community, somebody would have known and somebody would have been able to report. We need to get back to that point of vigilance. We need to get back to that point where we are reporting suspicious activities. And we need to also support the initiatives aimed at crime prevention. So let us be real. Those chat groups that we have that are prompting people when police come in to do roadblocks and all of that, it may work for some of us. But at the same time, what we are doing, we are also aiding and abetting criminal activity. Because those roadblocks which is set up to trap criminals, when those criminals come into those groups and they are seeing and getting the alerts and they are avoiding, and therefore the outcome is what we are witnessing. 2 women on the cusp of Mother's Day, 2 families in Tobago is without a sister, a daughter, a wife. 2 women, 2 murders, too many. And therefore, this has to be the wake-up call. This has to be the wake-up call that suggests that the time is now, Tobago. We all have to come together. This is beyond the politics. This is beyond, and you notice we did not point any fingers because I've always said that crime transcends politics. Crime is about people. Crime is about families. And crime is about us working hand in hand to treat with the root causes, to treat with the challenges in the community. And once so, we stand as a minority, prepared, ready, and able to work with all comers, including the executive, for us to arrest this great concern that is crime in Tobago. So, members of the listening public, once again, I just want to extend my deepest condolences to the family. I want to reiterate the call of Minority Councillor for all the systems to provide that support. There's this psychosocial. We know how impactful crime is on families, and those families that now have to go through that period of grief and mourning. And it is like every crime at the individual level, your body naturally just gets weaker and weaker, because it's like if you're losing yourself in it as well. And therefore, as an island, I know we all would need some comforting. We all will need some form of psychosocial assessment, and we all would need to support one another. So with those few words, I want to thank the members of the media for taking the time to come to this press conference where the minority is expressing its great concern for the rise in crime. 8 murders in 5 months. 3 of those are women especially. And I want to speak to the men. Brothers, we are failing our women. Brothers, we are failing our island. And brothers, we need to change our ways. Put down that gun, young man. Put down that idea of crime, young man. Put down those ways of hustling, young man. Take up productive. Take up positive. There are enough things to do on this island. And if you have an office that is paid for by the government called the Office of the Minority, if you have an idea, our doors are open, free. Come in, let's talk. And let's look to see how we can match you to opportunities and put down that life of crime. Because there's nothing good to come out of that other than pain, sorrow, and suffering. I thank you. Any questions at this time on this topic or anything else that you may want to address? Fine. So I want to thank you again. And as I said, our condolences goes out to both the family of Shalon Walters and Nikisha Sandy.